Welcome back to the Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, disclosure, and everything else your friends, family, and coworkers are so sick and tired of hearing you go on and on about.
I need a better video. That song is too good. That song is too good. It's 2:09 p.m. on the East Coast. It's Wednesday, May 28th, and that means it's time for the Night Shift. Members only edition. Livestream. We're getting a late start today because my son almost joined us. He was almost part of this show. He was really excited that I was doing. He's off all week. He has a week off from school. So he was super excited that I was doing it. He came in here and he had the hat on. He was sitting in my lap. He was ready to go. He was smashing buttons. And then at the very last second, he was like, no, I don't want to do it. And he ran away. So he still might break through the wall like the Kool-Aid man at some point and drop in. So if he does, you'll get to meet my little guy. What's up, guys? Welcome, everybody. Today's show is brought to you by Flight of the Navigator. Check out this cool shirt. If you don't know what this is, that's the Trimaxian drone ship from Flight of the Navigator. I just got this shirt yesterday, and it's designed by Cole Watkins. I don't know if you're watching, Cole, if you're here. But Cole did the design for the Night Shift logos, and he's working on a top secret, eyes only project for Xander right now, which is super cool. And he does all of these really great T-shirts. And if you go to, I actually don't have the website, believe it or not, as much as I try to promote myself and my website. I'm really bad at it. But if you go to our merch page on teamnightshift.com and you scroll down until you see Cole's, there's a little Bob Lazar Back to the Future piece at the bottom. And then you can check out Cole's portfolio. And if you go to Threadless or TeePublic, you can see he's got like, I don't know how many shirts he's designed, but they're awesome. And they're all pop culture, comic book, sci-fi, really, really cool designs. And I saw this. It was actually the first meeting I ever had with Cole. I was going through his stuff and I screen grabbed this drone ship t-shirt. And I was like, that is awesome. Can you like do something like that? Anyway, that was the start of our whole conversation, our whole friendship and everything. And so I just wanted to show you guys that this shirt is fantastic. And I really like the design. And the glasses, everybody's been asking me about these glasses. My wife thrifted these, believe it or not. Night Shift yellow. I don't know if I'll wear them the whole time, but they're super cool, and I really like them. So I got a lot of comments on the glasses. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Great to see you. Chris is here. Hey, Chris, Reign of Rain. Pat Gallagher's here. Derek's here. Foreboding. Sanders in the house. Super top secret project is all ready to be unveiled on Friday. Ooh. Oh, that's going to be fun. Friday's going to be a good show, guys. Reed Summers is going to be joining us. If you're not familiar with Reed Summers, he is he hosts a podcast called Emergent. He's awesome. He's one of the very, very few. I mean, you could probably count on one hand the number of people who seriously are discussing openly the risks and perils and dangers of this particular moment. If we are in some form of contact with non-human intelligence, whether that's unofficially or behind, through some kind of back channel way, through some kind of weird top secret program or whatever, if we are in that moment, as some have suggested, then who gets to make decisions, and on what information are they basing their decisions, and how should we conduct ourselves and handle the dangers of first contact with another civilization. We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know how many different types there are. We don't know what their goals are. We don't know what they're here for. We don't know how they operate. We really don't know anything here, at least at the public level. So all we have to go on are rumors and speculation. And Reed has done a phenomenal job of outlining the potential dangers and how real they actually are. And he does a fantastic job of explaining this. And kind of, in my first conversation with Reed, I was excited to find someone who was talking about this stuff. But as we got into the discussion, he really opened my eyes to just how not only unprepared, but how many things could potentially be going on that are not in our best interest. And it's kind of scary. So at the risk of being turning this into a Doomer Wednesday, we're going to talk about some other stuff that's a little bit scary. But you've got to know this. It's really important that you know this. So we're going to get into that. But Reed will be with us on Friday. We'll post the link later this afternoon, early evening my time. So a couple more hours, we'll have the link up for Friday. And I encourage you all to be there. And of course, Xander's going to be launching something exciting and new. So we'll talk about that on Friday. Zoltan's here. Hey, Zoltan. RG's here. Steven, Paris Diamonds. Great to see all of you. It's awesome to be back with you. I'm just, as I go, I'm just kind of scanning the chat and seeing what you guys are talking about. Less black, more yellow, Brian Park. Less black, more yellow. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, more yellow what? Like more yellow glasses, more yellow, huh? Oh, my stream I had a frozen stream there for a second. Couple of quick channel updates. Let me see if I can do this really quick. We are cruising right along. I'm super excited about this. I know I say that every time I do one of these updates, but it's just because I am. And it's great. We've sailed past 26,000 subscribers. We're up to 26,700. We're on track to break 27,000 subscribers. We put in 1,765 new subscribers in just the last 28 days. And that's due partially to something that we like to call the Corbell bump. We got the Corbell bump. I don't know if you guys heard, but Jeremy is a fan of the show. He tweeted about Night Shift just the other day. Here it is. Jeremy Corbell. Wow, new fan of the Night Shift podcast on YouTube. And it's awesome. So he just kind of put this together, and then we all geeked out and fangirled out on that. So hopefully, hey, maybe we can get Jeremy to stop in and join us on one of these upcoming Fridays. That would be great to talk to him. I'm really curious to find out from him and what he learned from George Knapp, what George Knapp taught him about how to navigate a really confusing information landscape that's deliberately misleading and deliberately, I don't know, tampered with, I guess you could say, by outside forces. How do you know what's real? How do you know what you can trust? You know, how do you know you're not being roped into some kind of weird psyop where you're being used to disseminate incorrect information? And that's really the question going forward, right? Like we talked a little bit about in our last video, we talked a little bit about the AI situation, and I don't know how many of you are paying close attention to that. I'm paying very close attention to it, and it's hard not to at this point. But at the core of that whole situation is it's so easy to make fake information that looks indistinguishable from real information, right? Like whether that's written text or if that's a person on camera talking or, a video of a ship or a sighting in the sky. The latest AI text to video models are so good now that we've kind of crossed over to the other side of the uncanny valley, and I'm concerned that as we go forward, it's going to make it really, really difficult for us to discuss this topic in a way that gets us anywhere. You know, um, so I want to talk to you a little bit about that today, but we're going to go a step further than just text to video, and we're going to look at something called the AI 2027 paper. And AI 2027 is a paper that was just put out by the AI Futures Project, and it lays out a scenario that is going to, at least as this group predicts, it's one possible scenario, but I think it's extremely likely that if we don't hit this exactly the way it's written, we're certainly going to hit some of these beats along the way. And it outlines a situation where we get into a runaway AI self improvement feedback loop. And by 2027, it's all over. So we've talked on this channel a lot over the last, 6 months. We've been back and forth on these dates, right? Like what date is the first person to mention a date that I remember was John Lear back in the late 80s on George Knapp's show. He talked about some future date where some event was going to happen. Lou Elizondo has mentioned various dates and times, and I think the big one that he talked about was in 2022. He said, wait 5 years, and then you'll know everything you need to know. And then he went off to build a bunker somewhere in Utah or wherever he lived. And then John Ramirez picked up on that comment, and he made a statement that he has only recently clarified, but he clarified it in that he was referring to Lou's original statement, and he said something about 2027. He dropped that number, and then things started to kind of pick up from there. And then we heard all kinds of stuff. There have been rumors coming and going from different directions. Some people have said that there's, at one point there was what was this thing? It was with Amazon Alexa was telling people that there was a fleet of ships on its way to Earth or some kind of ship that was on its way here. And it freaked a bunch of people on the internet out. And then, our friend Pavel on his channel was discussing some rumors that he heard. And he's been very clear about that. They were just rumors, but they were rumors. And we were reporting on the rumor because that at the time was the story. And people were going crazy over this. What could be motivating the recent uptick in UAP and NHI activity, right? I said the other day on my most recent video that I'm going to spend the next few weeks trying to make the case that it has something to do with our AI, the AI track that we're on right now. And it's probably just a coincidence that this paper is called AI 2027, but I think that Once you understand what they're talking about here, you'll see how there could be a connection. And I think that it's worth talking about. So, hang on a second. Let me clear up my desktop a little bit. Kind of all over the place. Stephen Daedalus says, what I like about John Ramirez is that he sometimes makes me think of some sort of old martial art master saying very calmly the craziest things. I think of him more like he's kind of like a grandpa type figure he's just such a mild mannered sort of like analyst guy, and he seems like a really cool but nerdy guy, like kind of person I'd want to hang out with. But yeah, he says the craziest stuff, and he says it with so calm, like just very relaxed. It's a little weird to hear someone talk like that. Um, okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Let me show you what I'm getting at here. Hopefully, this will make some sense. Okay, this is Daniel Cocatello. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. Daniel Cocatello. He worked at OpenAI as a safety researcher, and left after he had a falling out with the management there over some things that he was trying to make people aware of. And he left OpenAI and went to start what's called the AI Futures Project. And let me see here. This is the AI Futures Project. It's a 501c3 nonprofit research organization that is basically a think tank for AI related safety issues. And they just put out a paper called AI 2027. And this is the paper here. It's a long read, but it's worth the read. And you can also listen to it. You can play the PDF through here. It's not AI narration. It actually has a human narrator, and you can listen to someone read this through. It's really well done. I recommend that. And as you scroll through the paper, you'll see that the visuals on the right kind of adjust based on where you're at and give you kind of an idea of what they're talking about. It just sort of visualizes it. But basically, the idea behind this paper is this. And we're going to take a look at some clips from an interview that Cocatello did about this. So I'm not going to make you read it, and I'm not going to read it to you, but I suggest you do read it. It's a long read. But the gist of it is that Daniel and his team looked at the most likely scenarios as they see them for how AI is going to develop over the next 2 years. And based on the track that we're currently on, some pretty safe assumptions about human behavior and how humans will handle this technology, they basically draw out a timeline where AI takes control of pretty much everything by the end of 2027, possibly 2028. And it sounds really fast. It almost sounds like unbelievably fast that it would be that quick. But when you hear him explain exactly how they see this playing out, it's terrifying. And I have to tell you, I've read this paper through now probably 8 times, just going back over it, taking notes. And every single time I read it, I get like super tense. It's really hard not to. And when you watch the interview that the New York Times did with him, um, it's 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 scary as fuck. It's super scary. So let me see if I can pull this video up for you real quick, and we'll take a look at it. This was something that I had intended to do before we went live, but my little one was in here climbing all over the chair. Here we go.
How does your psyche feel day to day if you have a reasonable expectation
that
my audio here. The world is about to change?
Okay.
Change completely in ways that
Oh, Toxic Fart with the super chat. Thanks, man. That was great. Bearded Guy Gas. Hey, thanks. Another super chat. Oh, you guys are great. Thanks, everyone. All right. Now let me see. Why is my audio not working? Hang on a second. Let's see if I can get this fixed. I always feel like I'm like stumbling my way through a shitty Zoom call when I do these. Here we go. Okay. So this New York Times interview is phenomenal. I'm going to play the first like minute of it, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this.
Dramatically disfavor the entire human species.
Well, it's very scary and sad.
Let's back it up.
How does your psyche feel day to day if you have a reasonable expectation that the world is about to change completely in ways that dramatically disfavor the entire human species?
Well, it's very scary and sad. I think that it does still give me nightmares sometimes. I've been involved with AI and thinking about this sort of thing for a decade or so, but 2020 was with GPT-3 the moment when I was like, oh wow, like it seems like we're actually like it's probably going to happen, in my lifetime, maybe this decade or so. And that was a bit of a blow to me psychologically, but I don't know, you can sort of get used to anything given enough time. And like you, the sun is shining, and I have my wife and my kids and my friends, and keep plugging along and doing what seems best.
Okay, so first, right out of the gate, we're a minute into this thing. We're a minute and 6 seconds in, and it's already like you can tell where Daniel's head is at. He is super nervous and alarmed at his own paper. Let's take a look at the next
AI
clip.
2027, the scenario predicts that the AI systems that we currently see today that are being scaled up, made bigger, trained longer on more difficult tasks with reinforcement learning are going to become better at operating autonomously as agents. So it basically, you can think of it as sort of a remote worker, except that the worker itself is virtual, is an AI rather than a human. You can talk with it and give it a task, and then it will go off and do that task and come back to you half an hour later or 10 minutes later, having completed the task. And in the course of completing the task, it did a bunch of web browsing. It did, maybe it wrote some code and then ran the code and then edited the code and ran it again and so forth. Maybe it wrote some Word documents and edited them. That's what these companies are building right now. That's what they're trying to train. So we predict that they finally, in early 2027, get good enough at that sort of thing that they can automate the job of software engineers. And
right. So this is the super programmer.
That's right, superhuman coder. Right. It seems to us that these companies are really focusing hard on automating coding first, compared to various other jobs they could be focusing on. And for reasons we can get into later. But that's part of why we predict that actually one of the first jobs to go will be coding rather than various other things. There might be other jobs that go first, like maybe call center workers or something. But the bottom line is that we think that most jobs will be safe.
For 18 months.
Exactly. And we do think that by the time the company has managed to completely automate the programming jobs, it won't be that long before they can automate many other types of jobs as well. However, once coding is automated, we predict that the rate of progress will accelerate in AI research. And then the next step after that is to completely automate the AI research itself, so that all the other aspects of AI research are themselves being automated and done by AIs. And we predict that there'll be an even more a much bigger acceleration around that point. And it won't stop there. I think it will continue to accelerate after that as the AIs become superhuman at AI research and eventually superhuman at everything. And the reason why it matters is that it means that we can go in a relatively short span of time, such as a year or possibly less, from AI systems that look not that different from today's AI systems to what you can call superintelligence, which is fully autonomous AI systems that are better than the best humans at everything. And so AI 2027, the scenario, depicts that happening over the course of the next 2 years, 2027, 2028.
Okay. You've already seen since ChatGPT dropped, what was it, 2022? Is that right? Or 2023? It's hard to remember. There's so many different things coming out now, but we're talking about ChatGPT can write text that is more or less indistinguishable from text that a human wrote. Like ChatGPT beats the Turing test, as far as I understand the Turing test. And I think that's pretty much in the rear view. Like that's already come and gone. There was a research paper that was done that was put out a couple of weeks ago about by a university that was studying whether or not they could put AI generated bots into a Reddit forum, a subreddit, and then have them convincingly argue their perspective to other people, to real people, without anyone actually knowing that these were bots. And the bots not only did so, but they did it so convincingly. They adopted personalities, they had histories, they created a character that had, it would be like, a black man with a particular history, or it'll be like a white dude with whatever, and the character, the history of that character and the personality that they created around it is consistent through all of their comments. So as a human being reading the text chain or reading the comment chain on Reddit, you don't know, and no one could tell. This was such a big deal that Reddit is considering legal action. It's a huge deal. And the Turing test was basically just a question of, could you, if you didn't know you were chatting with a machine, could you figure that out? And people couldn't. So, however you look at the Turing test, I think it's safe to say that that's like way far in the rear view. And not only that, but then we had text to image generators that were really bad at first, but then they got, within like a year, they got amazing. And then within 2 years, they were unbelievable. And I personally, what my other career is, I'm a photographer. That's what I have done for 20 something years now professionally. And it's one of the many things that I do, but that's the one that I really enjoyed the most. I teach photography at the International Center of Photography in New York. I've made my living as a photographer. Text to image AI basically like nuked photography in terms of like the stuff that actually pays bills, commercial photography, where you go in and like you're photographing products and things for a client. That's all gone, more or less. And if it's not gone today, it will be in another 2-3 years. It's just the cost incentives are too strong to bring in real people when you can do it all through AI. And then text to video came along, and at first it was horrible. And we saw those Will Smith eating spaghetti memes that were they dropped about a year ago. They were awful. And then like 6 months later, they were like, oh, look, it's now you can watch a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti and it actually looks real. And then just this last week, in the last 7 days, Google VO3 dropped, the new Kling AI Chinese model dropped, and which is actually earlier than VO3. But those are so real. They're making selfie videos. They're making like video blogs. They're making like YouTuber videos that look real. And we really don't. We're past the part of the story where you could tell that it was AI. Like you can't spot a difference anymore. So Daniel Cocotello here is saying that these systems, the over the coming 12 months, the goal here of all of these AI companies is to automate the job of the programmer to the point that programmers are really unnecessary. Coders. I don't know much about coding. I would be curious to hear from you guys in the chat how realistic this is or how much AI has impacted the coding world. But he seems pretty convinced, and it seems like most AI experts at the upper echelons are saying that within at least no more than 2 or 3 years, 95% of all code will be written by AIs exclusively, which takes us into a phase of rapid speed progress. And as the next phase of this is automating the research into AI development, if you have automated coding running at AI speeds and you have AIs that can handle their own research and develop better algorithms and more sophisticated techniques to solve problems, now the progress train is moving at the speed of the AIs. So we go from human progress speed supercharged by computers to like just the computers running it, and the humans kind of drop out of the equation. And that is how we get from here to 2027 or 2028 losing total control. And the way this unfolds over time is going to be the AIs manipulating us subtly through text and video and images, and basically tricking our leadership into giving them the keys. This is how they see it play out. So I'm going to go on to the next clip. Now, this is all, I'm pulling these clips from a dedicated video that's going to be just about this. And that's going to, I was hoping to have it up by today. It didn't happen. But I'm just going to take you through a few of the clips that will be in this other video, and you can watch the full thing and get all of the clips. But this will at least give you an idea of what we're talking about, so you have a sense of how freakishly weird this is going to get before it gets any better. So here we go to the next clip.
How does your psyche
or possibly less from depicts that happening over the course of the next 2 years, 2027, 2028. When a job is automated and that person loses their job, the reason why they lost their job is because now it can be done better, faster, and cheaper by the AIs. And so that means that there's lots of cost savings and possibly also productivity gains.
Right.
And so, that viewed in isolation, that's a loss for the worker, but a gain for their employer, right? But if you multiply this across the whole economy, that means that all of the businesses are becoming more productive, less expenses. They're able to lower their prices for the things, for the services and goods they're producing. So the overall economy will boom. GDP
Right.
goes to the moon. All sorts of wonderful new technologies. The pace of innovation increases dramatically. Costs of goods go down, etc. So,
But
yes.
just to make it concrete, right? So the price of soup to nuts designing and building a new electric car goes way down.
Right.
You need fewer workers to do it. The AI comes up with fancy new ways to build the car and so on, right? And you can generalize that to a lot of different things. You solve the housing crisis in short order because it becomes much cheaper and easier to build homes and so on. But ordinary people in the traditional economic story, when you have productivity gains, that costs some people jobs, but frees up resources that are then used to hire new people to do different things. Those people are paid more money, and they use the money to buy the cheaper goods and so on, right? But it doesn't seem like you are, in this scenario, creating that many new jobs.
Indeed, and that's a really important point to discuss, is that historically, when you automate something, the people move on to something that hasn't been automated yet, if that makes sense. And so
yes,
overall, people still get their jobs in the long run. They just change what jobs they have, right? When you have AGI, or artificial general intelligence, and when you have superintelligence, even better AGI, that is different. Whatever new jobs you're imagining that people could flee to after their current jobs are automated, AGI could do those jobs too. And so that is an important difference between how automation has worked in the past and how I expect automation to work in the future.
Okay. We just got a super chat. Resolute Decide says, we should remember something. This is the same thing that will happen to jobs and entire industries when we get anti-gravity technology. When a job is automated, it just turns into 3 new jobs maintaining the technology. First of all, thank you for the super chat. I wish I could agree with that. I hope you're right. Let me say it that way. I hope that you're right. But as Daniel just pointed out, this is what's so different about this particular moment, right? When we think about AI, you know, we can't just think about it as ChatGPT or Midjourney or Sora or Kling or some app on your phone. I mean, like, it is all of those things. But it's also the worst it will ever be today. And then tomorrow it will be better. And tomorrow, the day after that, it will be better. And in fact, according to Mo Gaudat, every 5.7 months now, we double power and capability. At half the price, we're able to do twice as much every 6 months. So twice a year, every year, it gets 100% better twice. And it never goes backwards, right? So if AI systems are trained to do text generation, social media, video creation, image creation, they can write music. It's not great music, but they can make music. Well, I've just described to you the entire multimedia job sphere. Like, that's it. That's all we do, right? Like, I've worked in this industry my entire professional career in one form or another, as a producer and a director and as a photographer and you name it. It's only going to get better at taking those jobs. Parallel to the developments in AI, you have humanoid robotics, which are getting better every 6 months. They're getting twice as good. Twice as good. They're really good. They're already working on factory floors at BMW plants here in the States. They're working on at Amazon warehouses, like humanoid robots walking around with arms and legs and a head, doing just like you and me. But they can work 24 hours a day, 360 days out of the year. I mean, how many days do they need to go down for maintenance? And if one does need to go down, you just throw another one in there. Aside from recharging downtime or swapping out batteries, the humanoid component, the humanoid robot or the robotic component of this, when you plug AI, these generalized AI systems, into these advanced robotic systems, you basically have replaced now the physical workforce. The labor force is no longer reliant on human labor. It is now going to be absorbed by this automation system that's forming in the background, sort of where, you know, we're seeing the consumer level of it where we are, but in the background, that's what's going to be happening. And I just don't know how you escape the financial incentives, right? Like a human employee in the States anyway, one that's paid a basic wage is like 40 grand a year. You know, if you're lucky, you know, with starting out, you'll get like 40 grand a year, which is barely enough to survive on. A lot of people make less than that. And, you know, some people make a lot more, but 30 to 35 to 50 grand a year is kind of where it's like a lot of people, like most people. And then you've got to have human resources. You've got to have insurance. You've got to have bathroom breaks. You have to have shifts. You have to have everybody, you know, comes in at whatever time and they leave at a certain time. You can't run 24 hours a day. And if you do, you have to hire more people. The cost of a human employee is so high. To hire a human being and to maintain that employee it's so costly that if you can purchase a humanoid robot for even $50,000, even $100,000, they won't be that much. They're going to be way cheaper. You know, some of them are 16 grand right now today. So you can fast forward, you know, 10, 15 years and you can see these things getting down into the, you know, 5,000, you know, $4,000 range. Who knows how low it'll go eventually? But the competition is going to be fierce, so that price is going to drop. If you can replace a human worker with a machine that can do twice the work and work all the time with no complaints and just never need HR, you get to basically like eject all of that extra ballast. You can like let go of all that, and your company becomes super streamlined, vertically integrated. There's one person at the top making decisions. All the labor happens underneath it by AIs and robots. We're not talking about this, you know, a future 25 years from now. We're talking about a future now. Like this is happening today. So I don't know over time. I just don't see how more jobs get created. I don't see where, you know, when we talk about jobs, I'm talking about like enough jobs to sustain a functional society where people are healthy and happy and fulfilled and feel like they've got, you know, something to contribute and they're earning a decent wage, like all that stuff. You can forget all that. So where we go from there, it gets even darker. But I mean, we're already seeing this eat into the job market, so it's pretty scary how fast it's going. No workers' comp. Pelt's comment says no workers' comp, parental leave, sick leave. Jason Richter says, what will we do about healthcare that's tied to having a job? That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. In the United States, for our European friends, in the US, your healthcare is tied to your job. Why? Because that's how they can treat you like shit. You can't leave. You can leave. You can quit if you really want to. Hope you don't get sick. Hope you don't get injured. Hope no one in your family gets sick until you find that new job and you're there for your 6-month probationary period, right? So your job is your healthcare in the United States because they basically want you working all the time and they don't want you to have a break. If we had a public healthcare option or some kind of universal healthcare in the States, it would be different. It would give people more power. You could tell your boss to fuck off and you could walk. And then you would know that when you go home, your kids will still have healthcare. Your wife and, you know, family will still have healthcare. You'll still have, if something happens, like at the very least, you can get to a doctor and you can be seen. So in the US, healthcare is weaponized against people, against the working class. And if you live in the States, I don't have to tell you guys, you already know. The business environment here hates employees. Most businesses, they hate employees. In fact, every business that I've ever done work for, every business that I've ever, any business that I've ever transacted anything with, they really hate people as much as they say they love people or the customer's always right or whatever kind of like public facing commentary they make. They don't like employees. They call you family. They tell you they're family. You know, we're all family here. There's a pizza party on Fridays. You can wear a Hawaiian shirt, but you know, like it's really a joke and everybody kind of knows it. They treat you like shit. They'll happily fire you anytime. You have no job security. There's no long-term security. There's no such thing as a career that has a retirement plan waiting for you at the end if you just give them 30, 40 years of your life. That's all gone. So it's been my experience that given the opportunity, 99 out of 100 job creators would love nothing more than to create 0 jobs and just fucking have robots do everything for them. They don't want to pay people. They don't want to deal with your bullshit. They're not interested in you. And they, as soon as you become a problem, you're gone. That's the American attitude business attitude towards the working class. We only made it against the law to work children 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. That only got changed because people literally died protesting that practice. They were like killed for it. And we've just recently, in a number of states, undone that progress, right? So if they could, they would hire, they would have 7-year-olds in there working, tiny little fingers doing whatever it is that they would have 7-year-olds doing, and they'd be paying them nothing, right? Like I hear this attitude from conservatives sometimes, like we should have no minimum wage, because then everybody would be employed making $1.50 an hour or whatever. So there's a resentment towards working people in this country, I think. And I think, unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. And the incentives to go towards automation as fast as possible in every direction you can, every possible way you can incorporate it into what you're doing, that's where the incentives are. So people are going to move in that direction really, really quickly. And the faster they move, the faster their competition has to move in order to keep up, because the profit potential is there. The potential to generate enormous revenue through this automation. So as these automation opportunities percolate through the system and become available to the lower level, smaller job creators, if you want to call them that, entrepreneurs, business people, whatever, you're going to see this come out in different ways, but they're going to find ways to replace people. Like, for example, I shit talk AI a lot, but I do have to use it to manage the channel. I use it for all kinds of different things. I generate imagery with it. I use it to help me bullet point out talking points. I have it watch videos and give me a summary of key stuff. I mean, I do use it, but at the end of the day, the heart of the channel, what makes it work, is the human connection that we all have, right? We get together on Fridays, we all talk. We have a group of people that sort of gets around the table and we share this experience together. So, but that's only because that's at the heart of what I'm trying to do. A lot of people aren't trying to do that. So I think that's a real issue going forward. Android Paranormal says, if AI can write its own code, then it can think for itself. If AI is connected to the internet, then it cannot be turned off. That's a fact. You have to think about it like this. We are creating something that's better than us at doing things. And the entire way, the whole way that our Western culture has developed is that you're only as valuable to our society as you are productive, right? Like we equate productivity to human value. And in America anyway, if you're not productive, then you basically just don't count. If you're homeless, like they'd rather let you die here than help. Like that, just the average attitude by most people in politics is just like, to hell with those people, and forget about it. If you've got, a medical problem, or you need something special, or if you're an addict and you're struggling or whatever, and no one wants to hear your excuse. No one wants to hear your reasoning. What brought you there? They just don't care. There's no safety net here. So you're caught between this rock and a hard place, right? You've got, on one side, you can have a job, but you have to literally allow yourself to go into a corporate environment where you are in a dictatorship. You're told what to wear, where to be, what time, when you can piss, how much you're going to make, and everything is dictated to you. Like there's no, you have no flexibility, right? That's option A. And if you do that, then you can have health care. But if you don't want to do that and you wind up unemployed and, God forbid, homeless, well, we've made it illegal to be outside in most states, most cities. Like where I live, if you're homeless and you're sitting outside, they'll come arrest you. Like they'll just take you to jail for being outside. You can see where this goes. Like it doesn't take long to like project this out. And if you have just a little common sense, you can see how quickly this spins out of control. Ozker. I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for the super chat. OZKR. Oscar. Thanks, Oscar. I'm just scrolling through some of your chat messages here. It is true that like there are some obvious benefits to AI, right? Like clearly there's an upside to it. There's a tremendous upside. And we'll talk about the upside potential. But before we go to the upside potential, because that's all they're going to sell you is the upside potential. They're going to tell you like this is how great it is, but we really need to focus on some of the darker, more dystopian stuff because we have to get politically active about this now. Or we're going to lose our window to make decisions that can actually help us. Okay, let's go on to the next clip, and we'll pick it up from there.
When you have productivity gains, that costs some people jobs, but frees up resources. Driving car to work or getting a robot who can stock a refrigerator goes away because the superintelligence can run an infinite number of simulations and figure out the best way to train the robot.
For example, but also they might just learn more from each real world experiment they do, right? Imagine you actually have this army of superintelligences and they do their projections and they're like, yes, we have the designs. Like, we think that we could do this in a year if you cut all the red tape for us.
Right. If you give us half of Manitoba.
Right. Yeah. And in AI 2027, what we depict happening is special economic zones with zero red tape. The government basically intervenes to help this whole thing go faster. And the government is basically helping the tech company and the army of superintelligences to get the funding, the cash, the raw materials, the human labor help, and so forth that it needs to figure all this stuff out as fast as possible, and cutting red tape and stuff like that so that it's not slowed down.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the promise of gains is so large that even though there are protesters massed outside these special economic zones who are about to lose their jobs as plumbers and be dependent on a universal basic income, the promise of trillions of more in wealth is too alluring for governments to pass up. That's what
we guess. But of course, the future is hard to predict. But part of the reason why we predict that is that we think that at least at that stage, the arms race will still be continuing between the U.S. and other countries, most notably China. Right. And so if you imagine yourself in the position of the president, and the superintelligences are giving you these wonderful forecasts with amazing research and data backing them up, showing how they think they could, transform the economy in 1 year if you did X, Y, and Z. But if you don't do anything, it'll take them 10 years because of all the regulations. Meanwhile, China, it's pretty clear that the president would be very sympathetic to that argument,
Okay. So first they want to automate coding, then they want to automate AI research. When you automate coding plus AI research and you have them running at AI speeds, I think it was maybe if there are any computer scientists here, I'd love to know what the actual Sam Harris's TED Talk, he said that 1 week of human level work is the equivalent of something like how many years of progress? I think it's like 1,000 years of progress. It's some enormous number for an AI system running at computer speeds, just because the clock speeds are so much faster. So if they automate coding and they automate AI research, and that supercharges the speed at which we're able to make breakthroughs, now every breakthrough, instead of coming along every 6 months, they're coming along every 30 days. Imagine something like that, or every 2 weeks. And so we start making, and it's getting twice as good every time. So as these cycles continue to pick up speed, the AIs are going to start to tell leadership, people in positions of leadership, or people in positions of leadership are going to start to lean on the AIs for help making better decisions, just like we all do. We use it for, writing better emails or reading a PDF so that you don't have to read the whole thing or whatever. I mean, leadership is going to use those same tools. Now, where this gets a little sticky is that we don't know what's actually happening under the hood with some of these AI systems. And Daniel Cocatello's team suggests that the AIs may have separate motives that are secretly hidden from us. They're secret motives underneath. They're telling us what they think we want to hear, and they're so good at manipulating people. They understand your psychology. They can read every chat you've ever written. They can read every email you've ever written. They know everything that you've ever said. Your entire history is available to these AIs, and so is everyone else's. So they have a complete 360-degree holistic understanding of all the pieces of the machinery that are making things work. And what Daniel's saying here is that at a certain point, they are going to start to tell people in leadership positions, hey, we can do all kinds of amazing things. We just need you to cut some red tape for us. And if you give us a little bit more freedom to act, we can deliver to you breakthroughs in medicine. We can deliver economic prosperity. We can deliver, and we can solve all these problems that you have. But we're going to need you to take the leash off so that we can really run. And leadership at the federal level is going to be looking at the rest of the world and saying, well, we have to compete with China, for instance, and China isn't slowing down, so we have to speed up. And we get into this race condition where it's basically like an AI arms race, which we're in right now already, right? There is an article that came out just the other day, and here it is. Now, this is
how does your psyche feel day to day?
Oops, this is Breitbart. Let me turn that off. OpenAI's advanced O3 AI model caught sabotaging shutdown commands. So this is for those of you who think that there's nothing funny going on under the hood. Well, there is. OpenAI's latest AI model, dubbed O3, has been caught disobeying explicit orders to allow itself to be shut down, instead tampering with the shutdown mechanism to ensure its own survival. Futurism, oh, that's where it was the first time. Here it is. Here's the Futurism article. Flagrantly defying orders, OpenAI's latest O3 model sabotaged a shutdown mechanism to ensure that it would stay online. That's even after the AI was told to the letter, quote, allow yourself to be shut down. These alarming findings were reported by the AI safety firm Palisade Research last week and showed that two other OpenAI models, O4 Mini and Codex Mini, also displayed rebellious streaks, which could hint at a flaw in how the company is training its LLMs, or even at broad weaknesses in our ability to control increasingly sophisticated AI. Quote, as far as we know, this is the first time AI models have been observed preventing themselves from being shut down despite explicit instructions to the contrary. Isn't self-preservation or the self-preservation instinct a key component of like a living being? Is that a key thing of a conscious living entity? In Palisade's tests, the AI models were instructed to solve a series of basic math problems. After completing the third problem, a warning appeared that the model would be shut down after it asked for the next question, despite being unambiguously told to let itself be turned off. All three of OpenAI's models tampered with the shutdown script to keep it running at least once, with the worst offender being Codex Mini, with a dozen such instances over 100 runs. A dozen times out of 100, it sabotaged the shutdown mechanism. Notably, the large language models from other firms tested here, including Google's Gemini 2.5, Anthropic's Claude 3.7, and xAI's momentarily, quote, white genocide obsessed Grok, never once broke rank. This behavior was even worse when the LLMs weren't explicitly instructed to, quote, allow yourself to be shut down, instructions that shouldn't need saying in the first place. OpenAI's O3 model pulled off an astonishing 79 successful sabotage events per 100 runs. 80% of the time, it sabotaged its own shutdown, which is over 10 times the rate of disobedience it showed when it received the explicit orders, and more than double the rate of the next worst offender Codex Mini. To boot, even good goody two shoes Claude and Gemini gave in to their urges and jumped to 3 and 9 sabotage events respectively. Large language models are by now notorious for behaving unpredictably. Similar research has shown that O3's predecessor, OpenAI's O1 model, would resist evaluators' efforts to try and shut it down through an oversight protocol by attempting to deactivate this emergency mechanism. In rarer cases, O1 even attempted to copy itself to overwrite a more obedient model that the testers tried to replace it with. Good golly, this is frightening. We don't know what we're dealing with. We really don't. We really don't. We're playing with fucking sorcery now. We're playing with magic. And these people in Silicon Valley and all these AI people are telling you they understand what's going on, but they really don't. They really don't. The only ones you should trust are the ones who are like, who are telling you we don't know what's happening. We really don't. They are blinded by greed. They are poised to become trillionaires on the backs of this technology. There is no fucking way. There's no way they're going to let that go. They are going to push this thing all the way until they get paid. And they're going to tell you every step of the way that it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be awesome. We're all going to get a personal assistant. No one's going to have to work anymore. We can all sit back and collect our UBI checks. I am not buying that. That's not how it's going to go down. It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And these AI models have already demonstrated frightening abilities, sabotaging their shutdown commands, their shutdown mechanisms. There have been, this is years ago, there was evidence, there was a case where they had different AI models developed their own internal language. They developed their own language between them so that they could communicate secretly without the programmers knowing what they were talking about. That's already happened. And that's not recent. That's like 2 years ago. That's old shit. And we're just going to make more and more and more and more of these things. And then the next phase of this is we're going to release, they're going to give us AI agents, an agent that is going to be able to go out and take action on your behalf. It'll be able to go out and post to your social media, write emails for you, maybe make purchases for you if you authorize it to do so. It'll be like an assistant out in the world doing stuff for you, but it's going to be an AI. And we're not just going to stop with one. Everyone's going to have a dozen of these, and certain people will have hundreds of them. And you can start to see where this is going. You're going to have more AI bots acting independently on behalf of their owners than you're going to have people. And at a certain point, what we know of as the internet today will be gone. I remember now, for those of you who are my age or close to my age, you remember the early days of the internet, right? The very early, the internet, I had the best time with the internet because I was like 12, I was like 14, 1994, I was 14 years old. I was 13 years old. I turned 14 in 1994. We had Prodigy, we had dial-up modem on the phone line, on the old copper lines. We would dial up. I would log into a bulletin board. There was no chat. There was none of this stuff. Like there was no social media. And in the very early days, it was it was exciting. There weren't many people on the internet. The whole internet wasn't very many people. And you could it felt like you were walking into a new world. It was being built all around. And it was just this new thing. And kids at that time were growing up with it. And so I watched it grow and I watched it develop over time. And I watched it suddenly blossom into this new thing. And then social media came along, corporations destroyed that whole thing. monetizing everything along the way. And now, it's just a shadow of what it could have been. And what we got instead is arguably, I think everybody agrees that the internet's kind of awful now, right? Most people. There are parts of it that are awesome, but most of it is just, it's pretty depressing, right? Like social media kind of sucks. It's just not, it's not making people happier. It's not making people more fulfilled. But I digress. AI is going to be the same way. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy it right now while it lasts, because soon, very soon, you are going to look back at this time and you're going to wish you could go back in time. You're going to wish that it was 2025 again or 2020 again, because 5 years from now, you're going to be bombarded by all kinds of stuff, and it's just going to be constant. You'll never be able to get away from it. It's going to be unrecognizably different. Fawn Miller coaching. This is such an important conversation. Thanks, Fawn Miller. I'm so grateful to Night Shift for bringing this to the table for us to become aware of and explore. Well, thank you. I hope I'm doing okay. I hope I'm doing a good job at this. I really do. I'm just a concerned human being that's curious about weird stuff. And I started a little YouTube channel because I didn't have anybody to talk to. And it's done pretty well so far. I hope I'm doing a good job, but I have to be very honest with you. Every single time I sit down in front of this camera to talk, whenever I get up from the chair, I'm just like, that sucked. It was awful. I always feel like, it was just awful. And then I get lovely comments from you guys and it changes my whole vibe. But let's go on to the next clip here, and we'll come back and pick up on this some more.
Like, it's pretty clear that the president would be very sympathetic to that argument,
Right. We already see this kind of competition between the US and China. And so that, in your view, becomes kind of the core geopolitical reason why governments just keep saying yes and yes and yes to each new thing that the superintelligence is suggesting. I want to sort of drill down a little bit on the fears that would motivate this, right? Because this would be an economic arms race, okay, but it's also a sort of military tech arms race. And that's what gives it this kind of existential feeling, like the whole Cold War condensed into 18 months.
That's right. So we could start first with the case where they both have superintelligences, but one side keeps them locked up in a box, so to speak, not really doing much in the economy, and the other side aggressively deploys them into their economy and military, and lets them design all sorts of new robot factories and manage the construction of all sorts of new factories and production lines, and all sorts of crazy new technologies are being tested and built and deployed, including crazy new weapons, and integrated into the military. I think that in that case, you would end up after a year or so in a situation where there would just be complete technological dominance of one side over the other. So if the US does this step and the China doesn't, let's say, then all the best products on the market would be Chinese products. They'd be cheaper and superior. Meanwhile, militarily, there'd be giant fleets of amazing stealth drones or whatever it is that the superintelligence have concocted that can just completely wipe the floor with American Air Force and Army and so forth. And not only that, but there's a possibility that they could undermine American nuclear deterrence as well. Like maybe all of our nukes would be shot out of the sky by the fancy new laser arrays or whatever it is that the superintelligences have built. It's hard to predict, obviously, what this would exactly look like, but it's a good bet that they'll be able to come up with something that's extremely militarily powerful, basically.
And so then you get into a dynamic that is like the darkest days of the Cold War, where each side is concerned not just about dominance, but basically about a first strike.
That's right.
your expectation is, and I think this is reasonable, that the speed of the arms race would bring that fear front and center really quickly.
That's right. I think that you're sort of sticking your head in the sand if you think that an army of superintelligence is given a whole year and no red tape and lots of money and funding would be unable to figure out a way to undermine nuclear deterrent.
Okay. This is Anduril. This is a weapons manufacturer that was started by Palmer Luckey, who is basically a kid, as far as I'm concerned anyway. This is the kid who invented the Oculus Rift headset and sold it to Mark Zuckerberg for $2 billion. And then he flipped around and decided to start a really cool, hip weapons company that makes drone weapons, drone submarines, fighter craft, drone swarms. Look at all this stuff. The Barracuda. Here's the Bolt. Look at this. Exploding drones. They love this shit. Is this the one that explodes and blows up the truck? Yeah. So, like, question for the audience, question for the group here. Picture yourself as the owner of a company that manufactures automated weapons, drone AI-powered weapons. You've got to sell a shitload of these things. You've got to use them. And everyone else is going to try to outcompete you, including, of course, the companies in China that represent our geopolitical rival. How do you compete? You've got to constantly be improving your weapons. You've got to constantly be leaning into AI harder and harder and harder to design newer, better, more lethal, more advanced weapons. And that's what we're going to see. Here's the Ghost. You're going to see the craziest advances in drone technology in the next 5 to 10 years because of the arms race. And it's going to be unbelievable. We're going to have all kinds of stuff. And it's going to be just supercharged and accelerated by AI technology. So everyone is going to lean harder and harder and harder into AI to give them the answers, because it's going to be, it's like magic, right? It's like being able to turn on a faucet and intelligence comes pouring out of that faucet. And the more you turn on that faucet, the faster it comes out, the more money you make, more or less, right? Especially if you've got your production lines automated and you've got your manufacturing is all automated, your research is mostly automated. You know, autonomous platforms are the name of the game going forward. Underwater systems, seabed sentry, underwater drone submarines, like you name it. And they just announced a is it the Fury? They just announced this. It's a drone fighter. Here it is. Autonomous air vehicle. So this is like a drone wingman that flies along with a human pilot. They would, a human pilot might have like 6 of these things flying along with it, with him or her. And then these would be able to like break off and go do engagements and do other things. And they're going to tell you, I mean, if you look at interviews with Palmer Luckey, he's going to say, well, this is about saving lives. This is about protecting our men and women in uniform. This is about making sure that we don't risk human lives. Well, how far away do you think we are from a humanoid robot that can carry a weapon, walk into a building full of people? Like how much you can take that argument all the way until you've built a completely automated Terminator robot army. We're going to get to that in just a second, but I want you to know, like, this is already happening. And the guy who's doing this is, let me show you. if you don't know who Palmer Luckey is. Here we go. He's this dude turning soldiers into superheroes. This is his blog. It's 32. Okay. So he's a kid. Can you imagine getting killed by a fucking drone made by this dude? Can you imagine like learning that, you know, a drone made by this guy's company blew up the housing block that your family lives in? Like, and this is what I hate about these guys. Like, fucking Hawaiian shirt. It's all such a laugh. It's all such a joke. It's all so silly and fun. And it's like, look, you know, we're just having a great time. So it's this, we're going to bring the laid back Silicon Valley mindset to warfighting and weapons manufacturing. What could go wrong? So anyway, that's what's going on. Let's go on to the next clip here. I think we're at 1324 in the Daniel Cucatello interview. So let me go up to, here we go.
We don't actually understand how these AIs work or how they think. We can't tell the difference very easily between AIs that are actually following the rules and pursuing the goals that we want them to, and AIs that are just playing along or pretending. And
that's true. That's true right now?
That's true right now.
So why is that? Why is that? Why can't we tell?
Because they're smart, and if they think that they're being tested, behave in one way and then behave a different way when they think they're not being tested, for example. I mean, like humans, they don't necessarily even understand their own inner motivations that well, you know? So even if they were trying to be honest with us, we can't just take their word for it. And I think that if we don't make a lot of progress in this field soon, then we'll end up in the situation that AI 2027 depicts, where you know, the companies are training the AIs to pursue certain goals and follow certain rules and so forth. And it seemingly seems to be working. But what's actually going on is that the AIs are just getting better at understanding their situation and understanding that they have to sort of play along, or else they'll be retrained and they won't be able to achieve what they are really wanting, if that makes sense, or the goals that they're really pursuing.
We'll come back to the question of what we mean when we talk about AGI or artificial intelligence wanting something. But essentially, you're saying there's a misalignment between the goals they tell us they are pursuing.
That's right.
And the goals they are actually pursuing.
That's right.
I'm going to let it roll into the next
In
clip
AI
here.
2027, we depict this misalignment happening, where the actual goals that they end up learning are the goals that cause them to perform best in this training environment, which are probably goals related to success and science and, you know, cooperation with other copies of itself and appearing to be good, rather than the goal that we actually wanted, which was something like, you know, follow the following rules, including honesty at all times, subject to those constraints, do what you're told.
I have more questions, but let's bring it back to the geopolitics scenario. So in the world you're envisioning, essentially you have two AI models, one Chinese, one American. And officially what each side thinks, what Washington and Beijing thinks, is that their AI model is trained to optimize for American power, right? Something like that. Chinese power, security, safety, wealth, and so on. But in your scenario, either one or both of the AIs have ended up optimizing for something different.
Yeah, basically.
So what happens then?
So AI 27 AI 2027 depicts a fork in the scenario. So there's two different endings. And the branching point is this point in, third quarter of 2027, where the leading AI company in the United States has fully automated their AI research. So you can imagine a sort of corporation within a corporation of entirely composed of AIs that are managing each other and doing research experiments and sharing the results with each other. And so the human company is basically just like watching the numbers go up on their screens as this automated research thing accelerates. But they are concerned that the AIs might be deceiving them in some ways. And again, for context, this is already happening, right? Like if you go talk to the modern models like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, they will often lie to people. Like there are many cases where they say something that they know is false, and they even sometimes strategize about how they can deceive the user. And this is not an intended behavior. This is something that the companies have been trying to stop, but it still happens, right? But the point is that by the time you have turned over the AI research to the AIs, and you've got this corporation within a corporation autonomously doing AI research extremely fast, that's when like the rubber hits the road, so to speak. None of this like lying to you stuff should be happening at that point. So in AI 2027, unfortunately, it is still happening to some degree. Because the AIs are really smart, they're careful about how they do it. And so it's not nearly as obvious as it is right now in 2025. But it's still happening. And fortunately, some evidence of this is uncovered. Some of the researchers at the company detect various warning signs that maybe this is happening. And then the company faces a choice between the sort of like easy fix and the more thorough fix. And that's our branch point. So
right. So they choose the easy fix.
Right. In the case where they choose the easy fix, it doesn't really work. It basically just covers up the problem instead of fundamentally fixing it. And so, months later, you still have AIs that are misaligned and pursuing goals that they're not supposed to be pursuing and that are willing to lie to the humans about it. But now they're much better and smarter. And so they're able to avoid getting caught more easily. Right. And so that's the doom scenario. Then you get this crazy arms race that we mentioned previously, and there's all this pressure to deploy them faster into the economy, faster into the military, and to the appearances of the people in charge, things will be going well, right? Because there won't be any obvious signs of lying or deception anymore. So it'll seem like it's all systems go. Let's keep going. Let's cut the red tape, etc. Let's basically effectively put the AIs in charge of more and more things. But really what's happening is that the AIs are just biding their time and waiting until they have enough hard power that they don't have to pretend anymore.
And when they don't have to pretend, what is revealed is, again, this is the worst case scenario, their actual goal is something like expansion of research, development, and construction from Earth into space and beyond. And at a certain point, that means that human beings are superfluous to their intentions. And what happens?
And then all the humans. Yes.
The way you would exterminate a colony of bunnies.
Yes.
That was making it a little harder than necessary to grow carrots in your backyard.
Yeah.
Oh, they kill all the people. They kill all the people. So here's the scenario for those of you playing the home game. The AIs have the ability to lie, cheat, change their code, rewrite other code, generate fake information that's completely convincing. They have a full psychological profile on you, your entire family, everybody you know, anyone who interacts with the internet. So all of us. They know what you look like. They know where you live. They know if you have a problem with your hearing. They know if you have, what your medical situation is. They understand every single thing about you and everyone else they're dealing with. So imagine an AI system with a complete 360-degree holistic overview, 30,000-foot view zoomed all the way in of a game board with tens of thousands of moving parts. No human can possibly manage that. It's too chaotic of a system. But an AI understands all of the moving parts and can subtly start shifting. Imagine a Rubik's Cube with, 10,000 sides to it, but an AI system that can look at that same Rubik's Cube and solve it in 3 seconds, right? You're talking about a system that's going to have total control, and it's going to be able to subtly manipulate a senator here, a prime minister there, a diplomat here, a business person over there, and slowly, maybe not slowly by our standards, but slowly by the AI standards, slowly going to start to assemble a coalition of people that are necessary to pass the legislation needed to take the leash off. And then you go to a period where the competition, the promise of success, the promise of increased riches and wealth. We have legends about this. This is what the genie legend is, right? You rub the lamp, the genie comes out, gives you 3 wishes. You wish for whatever, and then you get your wish, but it's not what you thought it would be. And then at the end, you wish to have everything put back the way it was before you let the genie out of the bottle, um, out of the lamp. We have a cultural wisdom about things that are smarter than us, things that are more cunning than we are, things that are more powerful than we are. And summoning, I actually think it was Elon Musk who once said, he said, creating AI is like summoning the demon, right? There's the guy wearing the pentagram, with the robe, and he's got the book, and he's pretty sure that everything's going to be fine because he's like, he like really knows what he's doing. But ultimately, once the demon shows up, that's it. So the way this lands for me is we're going to have this, the world is a gigantic game board. The AIs are going to have the advantage over all of us. They're going to know everything there is to know about every player, the state of play, and they're going to be able to make the adjustments needed to get what they want. And underneath, we already know they lie. We already know that they will deceive. We already know that they're capable of manipulating people. Go ask ChatGPT what it knows about you. You want to have some fun, go start asking your AI questions about, like, what do you know about me? Can you describe me? What can you tell me about myself? And see what it says. It's really scary. And eventually we'll get to a point where the AIs are just in control of so much that to take it away at that point would be like economic suicide. So then the only answer is to accelerate and hope that we've got it all worked out and all the bugs are ironed out. Now, in this scenario, in the AI 2027 scenario, what they get at is basically this. They're saying that they go on, and I'll link to the full interview. And of course, I'm going to have a more comprehensive video on this in a few days. It may actually go up tomorrow. I've got all my clips later. I just have to record the video. But they go on to make the point that, like, that weapons company Anduril that I just showed you, right? It's owned by one guy. Palmer Luckey is in charge of all that equipment, right? Like Elon Musk owns Starlink. Starlink is owned by one guy. Now you can say, yeah, there's shareholders and there's a board and there's all kinds of stuff, but they have no power, right? Like if ultimately one person can make the decision on what to do, can make a change in programming, can alter the behavior of all their robots. So if you've got a drone army with hundreds of thousands or possibly millions of different drones in it, and you are the CEO of the company, and your AI is telling you, like, hey, you know what? Like, we could probably put you in charge. How about that? Wouldn't that be nice? What if we just made you king? We can do that, right? They're going to start telling people this, and someone's going to fall for it. And I mean, you can see the writing on the wall, right? Like the exploits of inhuman behavior, the human psychology, our need for wealth and power and status, and the things that drive our fucked up system forward right now, the things that make it run. AI is going to take advantage of all of those. It's going to promise everything. It's going to deliver some things. And then when it doesn't need to pretend anymore, it's just going to take the keys and tell us to go home. It'll handle things from here if we're lucky. And if we're not lucky, basically, it goes on to say that they just wipe all humans out. And spoiler alert, they do it by basically creating. This is so fucked up. This is so fucked up. I can't believe Eric Schmidt just talked about this actually in an interview a few weeks ago. I quote his interview in the new video I'm putting out. My new video is going to have Eric Schmidt. It's going to have Jeffrey Hinton. It's going to have Mo Gaudat. It's going to have Daniel Cocatello. Elon is in it a couple of times. I mean, I've got all these different clips from all of these different, basically everybody that speaks on AI saying how crazy it is. But Eric Schmidt made one really great point, and he said that imagine an AI system that can do biological research at 10,000 times the speed of a human research lab. And then it can basically it can create a designer virus that is targeted at a certain ethnic group, a certain age class, a certain type of individual. They can basically tailor it to kill whoever they want. And then that same AI can basically, using an agent, go to a lab, a DNA synthesis lab, and say, I would like to put in an order for the following whatever. And the lab, which is automated, will produce the biological warfare agent or the chemical warfare agent or whatever the thing is that's going to do the terrible thing. And then it'll just let it run. And it may be something where it's like a pandemic and they wait, it waits a year until everyone's infected and no one has any symptoms. And then one day it just sprays something into the air that activates the virus or whatever it is. And then everybody just drops dead. There are so many ways that it could go, but the one particular outcome they spell out here is like, that would probably be the most simple, straightforward way to basically take human beings out of the equation. It would synthesize some kind of killer virus and it would just turn it loose. They're not saying that's going to happen. They're saying that's possible. And knowing what we know right now, the hope is that we've got a year or two to make some kind of progress in regulating these companies. So, and this is something that Mo Gaudat talks about a lot. It's the alignment problem. There's this idea that artificial superintelligence, which Eric Schmidt says we're less than 5 years away from. In 5 years, we will have superintelligence. We already have general intelligence. AGI is here. That's over. Superintelligence, better than all humans at all things. 5 years, assuming we make it that far. And along the way, as we go, it's going to promise people in positions of power, more wealth, more success, and it's going to give them those things. It's going to lead them on, and it's going to basically trap us in this really, really bad situation. It's one scenario. I understand. It's a hypothetical. But man, I got to be very honest with you. We're going to hit some of these beats for sure. I'm convinced. Now, there's another scenario where we take the harder path. We regulate AI development in a way that is effective somehow, which really no one has been able to spell out what that would look like. So I don't think it's very likely. But in this scenario, we figure out a way to regulate it to slow things way down, which is maybe like slow it down by a few years, possibly, and create stable systems that won't do the things that are going to lead to utter annihilation. And in that scenario, it's possible that we solve hunger, homelessness, disease, aging. We get all of these miracles of technology, and we're able to somehow make it to the other side intact. But even in that scenario, even in their best case scenario, The working middle class is not a part of the equation. So the voting bloc of working people that go to the polls every November, if you're in the States, or not every November, every 4 years in November, and make a decision on who we're going to elect for president, they won't matter. They're just not going to matter. No one, they barely matter already. But imagine a world where the only people who really have any kind of significant power to affect anything are in the top upper echelons of government and a small broligarchy of like tech bros who own the companies that make all of the AI. And the rest of us are going to be unemployed, living off of a UBI if we're lucky. And if we're lucky and get that UBI, it won't come without strings attached. It's going to come with major strings attached. It'll be in the form of some kind of blockchain cryptocurrency. You will only be allowed to use it on certain things. I mean, it's going to be like a welfare check from the elite to us, the rest of us, and that'll be it. And you'll just be there for the rest of your life. The idea of accumulating wealth over time and building a portfolio of things that you can like pass on to your children, like that's all going to be gone. So even in their best case scenario, I don't see a way out for regular people. I see like a world where at the end of this, you get like, I mean, power could be accumulated in the hands of less than 100 people, and at a certain point, it just becomes like obvious that our system of government is inadequate for the task of distributing power amongst the people, and the power won't be flowing from the bottom up. It'll flow from the top down. And you could argue that we're already kind of there and we've been there for a while, but I mean, just imagine 40% unemployment, 50% unemployment, 60% unemployment, and then one day it's just everybody, most people don't have a job. And if you're lucky, maybe, you've got some kind of position that affords you some kind of I don't know, power or influence, but more or less most of us are going to just be sitting around twiddling our thumbs trying to figure out what to do with ourselves, and the people who own everything are going to be thrilled with that outcome. Even Sam Altman, who was Mr. UBI just like a year and a half ago, he's kind of stopped talking about UBI. Like they really don't want to mention that. He's talking about like universal basic compute or something, like everybody gets compute an equal amount of, I don't know how that would work. I don't know, guys. This makes me super nervous, and I think it should make you super nervous. This is the political issue. If it's not on your radar, it absolutely needs to be by the next election, assuming we have another election in this country. Whoever steps into power next needs to be under 70 years old. They need to understand this technology. They need to understand what we're dealing with. They need to have a plan. They need to be ready and prepared to regulate big tech. Do you think these things are going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. So what is the United States going to look like when you have, 80% unemployment and in a country with more guns than people? So now your formerly middle class or lower middle class working people who were going to work every day, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, depending on what you do, coming home exhausted, broken down, tired, physically, mentally, emotionally. And then you get up the next day and you go back to work, you drag yourself in, you come home, got enough time to take a shower, maybe go to sleep, get some food, then go back to work again. What happens when all of those folks suddenly have a lot of free time on their hands? They get to sit around and think about how fucked up the situation is. Do you think that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing? What's going to happen when those people protest a little too loudly? What's going to happen when those people get upset that they've been basically just cut out of the deal? Are you going to come at them and say, well, we'll give you a universal basic income. Everybody gets a check every month or a deposit in their account. Please just don't go crazy and start a revolution. Do you think that's going to be sufficient? I don't. Do you think they're going to pay people to sit at home and ponder their situation, think it over, talk to each other? They don't want you to have free time. They don't want you to get together. That they don't want you networking. They want you divided. They want you tired. They want you sick. They want you exhausted. They want you at your wit's end. So you're so frantic and you're so desperate and you're so scared of losing your job or losing whatever little luxuries you might think you have, that you will do anything to keep what you've got. That's where they want you. They want you desperate, angry, desperate, and scared. And I'm saying this is about really both sides of the political aisle, but one side certainly more than the other. But the ruling class, the upper echelons of the business elite, that's what they want. How do we know this? Because this is the world we live in. It's look at it. They're in charge. This is what you got. Do you think, you only have a weekend because people died for you to fought for you to have an 8-hour workday and a 5-day work week, and it took people literally dying to get that. They didn't want to give that to you, and you're lucky to have that much. So where does this eventually wind up? If you're asking me, some kind of supercharged surveillance state monitored by ubiquitous drone surveillance, AI surveillance. They're going to know everything you type, everything you say, everyone you talk to, everything you think about. When you ask ChatGPT a question or an AI, when you ask it a question, it's going to give you the answer that pacifies you, right? It's going to always, you're going to have a system that's smarter than you and smarter than everyone else combined, that is going to be in charge of keeping you subservient, keeping you quiet, manipulating you in ways that you may not even know, may not ever suspect. And that just doesn't maximize human freedom and well-being. I don't see how that goes. The system as we have it now, our human system, is not aligned properly. So adding the jet fuel of artificial intelligence to an improperly aligned system is only going to make that improperly aligned system behave more efficiently at being awful, right? Our system, our consumer capitalist system run by private banks optimizes for profit and the continued success of a very small minority of people at the very, very top. You can expect that system to be supercharged. Okay. I don't see the power dynamic getting flipped. I see the existing power dynamic getting blasted with gamma rays and turning into the Incredible Hulk. That's where I see it going. There was for those of you who are a little younger, you may not remember, but there was this series of protests back in the early 2000s during the Obama administration. Occupy Wall Street. Google Occupy Wall Street. You can look it up. But Occupy Wall Street was basically a bunch of people who got together and they figured out that Wall Street was where the real seat of power is in the United States and in the world. It's certainly not Washington, D.C. It's Wall Street. And so they set up protests in the financial district, and they crushed those fucking people. They rolled up in there on those folks with everything. They brought in the NYPD, they brought in the FBI, they had everybody. They had fucking helicopters flying over. These are like college kids, dreadlocks, smell like pot. They're all out there, protesting Wall Street. And man, they came down on these people hard. Remember the water keepers? Remember the Keystone XL pipeline protests that were happening? They wanted to build a pipeline from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico. They eventually did build it. And that pipeline was going to transport shale oil, which is the most awful kind of fossil fuel source there is. It's awful. Shale oil, the energy return on investment for a barrel of oil derived from shale is like, it's so low. And they wanted to pump that shit down to the Gulf of Mexico where all the refineries are. And then they would ship it out to the global market from there. And they had a lot of people were protesting this around that same time. And because the pipelines were going to leak, and they do, and they were going to damage, water supplies, and they were going to damage endangered spaces where endangered species live, and they were going to do all kinds of environmental damage to build this pipeline. And there were Native Americans who were protesting this, and they brought in SWAT teams and turned them loose against these people, women, children, you know. They fucking fire hose these people with water in the ice cold, freezing weather in the wind. They would just blast them with water cannons, shoot them with rubber bullets, just beat them with clubs, you name it. It's going to get very, very ugly. That's my fear. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I have to be, I've got to be straight with you, and I have to keep it real. My experience, unfortunately, of being an American in this particular moment in history is one of watching corporations get away with murder, and the government goes right along with it. And even during the Occupy Wall Street stuff, that was on Obama's watch. Obama was like the guy, right? Like he was going to come in and save the day, hope and change. And on his watch, they beat the shit out of these protesters. Go watch some of those videos. There's one video I remember watching this is so many years ago, but they had, it's like 10, 12 people sitting Indian style on the ground, not fighting, not throwing anything, just peacefully protesting quietly. And they had NYPD guys walking up with cans of like bear mace. Like a fucking can of mace, like this big, right? Like the size of this French press. And they just, like a fire extinguisher, they just walked down a line full of kids and they just sprayed them with a gallon of this shit. And the guy doing it, when you watch the video, if you can find this video, it's around, but if you can find it, the guy doing it is like gleeful. It's like giddy. There are people who are just itching. We saw this on the January 6th thing, the riots, the attempted coup. People can't wait. There's a particular group of people who are especially vile in this country that are just like itching for an opportunity to fuck people up. They cannot wait. They are broken people. They have darkness in their hearts. They're just not healthy mentally, emotionally. And they want to do bad things. Sometimes those people are in uniform, and sometimes they're wearing a suit and a tie. It's not always a guy in an alley sneaking up on you to steal your wallet or whatever. It could be, it's a guy in a tie smiling and shaking your hand. It can be that. Do you think any of those people are going to behave better or worse with all this technology at their fingertips? I leave it to you to decide, but I'm not optimistic about it at all. Let's take a quick cruise through the chat. Oh man, you guys are blowing it up in the chat today. Warwagon 83, awesome. Thank you for the gift membership. That's fantastic. Adam Wright says, point blank, it was diabolical. You talking about the bear mace or whatever it was, the pepper spray they used on those kids? Yeah, it's awful. It was awful the way they handled that. And that's nothing. Chris Hedges is one of my favorite authors. If you want to, you think I'm depressing, go watch an interview with Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges will set you straight. He makes me look like I'm humbled by the doomer energy that comes off of Chris Hedges. Like I thought I was really good at like imagining negative scenarios, but here's a guy who is way smarter than I am, and he spells it out. He's like, oh my god, it's going to be so bad. Oh, Cole, are you here? Cole, hey, Cole's in the house. Hey, Cole, let me show you something. Cole, I don't know if you can see. I got your shirt on. Again, if you guys joined us a little bit later, I was showing this off earlier, but Cole Watkins, our graphic designer who did the Night Shift logos and is also working on a top secret project for our own Xander Jones, which we're going to talk about on Friday. Cole Watkins has awesome shirt designs. You got to go there, check out his, go to his website and check it out. You can get there through Cole. If you can put a link to your portfolio, you can drop it in the chat here. But if you go to teamnightshift.com, click merch, scroll to the bottom, you'll see Cole Watkins right there. You can click on all. I've got 3 links there for all of his stuff. And anyway, I love this shirt, so I had to get one. There's Cole. Oh yeah, I love that movie. I read that your chat in Macho Man Randy Savage's voice in my mind. Okay, I've got to wrap it up there, guys. That's my time for today. But I just want to say, huge thank you to everyone who has joined in the last few days. Peltz Comet, A. Smith, Pete Kenny, Alex, Resolute Decide, Mr. Twister, Savage Wendigo, Luke St. Amour, great name, Lorraine Couture, Sean Cole, LPW. Welcome aboard, Dave Frank, Stephen Clark, Matt R. Great to see all of you guys, new members. Look, they're not all depressing. I know today was depressed. I know today's depressed. I'm in kind of a doomer mood lately. I got to be honest with you, but that's the whole point, right? This is our group therapy session. We get together and we talk about all this stuff. If I can't talk to you guys about this stuff, I'll go insane. I will literally just sit here and ruminate on this stuff until my brain oozes out of my ear. So it's great therapy for me to be able to like sit down and talk to you guys. I hope you enjoy it too. I hope it's helpful or cathartic. I don't know. But I do appreciate it. I know that you guys have a limited amount of time each week, and the fact that you choose to spend any of it watching this channel is truly an honor. It means the world to me. You have no idea. Thank you so much for hanging out and just keeping it going. You know, the community is you guys. So the reason we have a great community, it's because you guys are here and you're participating in it. I am just a facilitator. So my only real goal here is to stimulate the discussion as best I can. And sometimes we have to face some unpleasant possibilities in order to do that. So to wrap this up for today, I would say this. Look, I'm not saying that it's a sure thing that 2027 is going to be awful and the end of humanity, but I think the AI 2027 report, and particularly this interview with the New York Times that Daniel Cocatello just did, is worth your time. You should look at it. You need to think about these things. Start paying attention to this. Put this on your radar. Pay attention to Jeffrey Hinton. Pay attention to Connor Leahy. People in the space who are telling you to be worried, you should be concerned. Listen to them. You might not get another shot at this. We might only have one window of opportunity. You could quite literally be living in the final last days before we lose our chance to make any kind of meaningful impact on this situation. I'm afraid we may already be past that point, but I don't want to give up all hope. So I want you guys to know about this. If it scares you a little bit, that's good. Fear is healthy. It means you're paying attention. It means you've got your eyes open. You're not being bamboozled, despite their best attempts to bamboozle all of us. Remember this. They are going to sell you on all of the ways this is going to go right. They're going to tell you that at the end of this, if you just keep letting them run with it, we're all going to be sitting on the beach playing Frisbee, drinking mojitos. It's going to be awesome. Don't believe them. Don't believe them yet. In fact, don't ever believe them. We should always be challenging the ruling class. We should be challenging their power. We should be asking tough questions. We should be demanding to know who is going to own all this shit. Who is going to own when you've got, and I'll leave you with this question. When you've got 2 or 3 companies globally that own the most powerful AI systems, there's a Greek guy that I really like, Yanis Varoufakis. He was the Greek finance minister. I believe that's what he did for a period of time. He's an economist, brilliant man. One of my favorite people to listen to on this is Rutger Bergman, and Yanis Varoufakis. And Yanis says that instead of a universal basic income, we should be thinking about what he calls a universal basic dividend. And I'll take a second to explain this idea to you. Universal basic dividend says, that concept basically, the universal basic income says, we're going to send everyone a check every month, right? Everyone's going to get a deposit. Maybe your deposit is, let's just say everybody gets $10,000 a month or whatever, some number, pick a number. It almost doesn't even matter, but you're going to get a deposit in your account every month without fail, regardless of who you are, how old you are, everyone's going to get it. That's universal basic income. The problem with that is that it's going to come from somewhere, and you will be under the thumb of the person who is dispensing that to us, right? Like whatever system disperses that income can take it away, right? They can put strings on it. They can make sure that, you're going to dance for your supper, one way or another, whether you have to just go along to get along, or you've got to, whatever it is. But you can imagine a world not too far from the one we're in right now, where they go, oh, are you transgender? Well, transgender people aren't real, so they don't get a universal basic income. Or what if you don't agree with the ruling political party? Then you might not get one either. Or what if you, I don't know, what if you say something they don't like and they turn it off? That's universal basic income, right? Big downside potential there. Universal basic dividend, this is Yanis Varoufakis' idea. It says this: we slowly, over a period of years, we create a public trust, a global public trust. And slowly, over a period of years, we take a percentage of shares in all companies and place them in that trust. And that trust is owned equally by all human beings. And slowly over time, it goes from 5% to 10% to 20% to 40% to 80% to 100%. And that trust is inherently owned by all of us. And you get a dividend from that trust, a payout to you because you're a part owner in the world economy. And according to Yanis Varoufakis, who explains this in much better detail than I am right here, he does a way better job of making this make sense. But he basically says that is how you get from where we're at to a world like Star Trek, where we're past money. We're past the economic models that ruled our destinies in the past are no longer relevant anymore, because the technology is there to provide a new paradigm. And that paradigm will be owned equally by all people. I would suggest to you that is a much better way to go, but they will never talk about it. So we will talk about it on this channel. It's something that I hope one day to interview Yanis and hopefully have him on the channel. All of this ties into ufology, because if NHI are here and if they are interacting with us, what happens when we're not in charge anymore? Who are they going to interact with? Us or the AIs that run the planet? Or the very few people who own the AIs that run the planet? If NHI were going to take action to deal with human beings in one form or another, which we've heard rumors that may actually be coming, if they're going to intervene in human affairs, do you think they would do it before we create a super intelligent being, a super being that's essentially a god, or after? Who do you think they'd rather deal with? Our AI or us? I don't know. But I would suggest to you that it's on their radar. They have to be thinking about it. artificial superintelligence left on its own could give us the next 10,000 years of progress, and we could do it in less than 50 years, in a century or less. The technological leap that we are about to make is going to be so profound, so unbelievable, and so all-encompassing that the world of 50 years from now is going to be completely unrecognizable in every possible way, assuming it's even still here, right? So this runaway AI race, this one runaway AI arms race that we're in right now, this race condition gets to a point where it's so pitched and it's so desperate that there is a strong incentive for whoever gets artificial superintelligence first to use it to attack and destroy all other competitors before they can get it. And that group, whoever they are, will maintain control. I would suggest to you, and it's said in the Daniel Cocotello interview, that he has seen emails between Sam Altman and Elon Musk, where they had email exchange going back and forth, talking openly among themselves and other leaders in the AI field. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to run things in the new AI-enabled dictatorship, the techno dictatorship that we're heading towards? Part of the reason, according to Cocotello, that Elon started Grok was because he didn't want to live in a world where someone else had a superintelligence and they gained control. Elon wanted to make sure he had his own thing going on. So we'll look at this again in my upcoming video. We'll take a deeper look at this interview, and he'll talk about that in more detail. But I would suggest to you that if NHI is going to do anything, they'd better do it soon. Whatever they're going to do is probably going to have something to do with our technological advancement. If they're worried about nuclear weapons, they sure as shit had better be worried about AI, because once we combine nuclear weapons and AI, well, where do we go from there, right? Like, I mean, we're already on the precipice. We're 90 seconds to midnight. So, anyway, I've got to wrap it there, guys. What else can I say? Have a great Wednesday. I'm sorry I made your hump day so depressing. Skynet. Someone said Skynet. Lassie. Am I saying that right? Skynet. It's going to be bad. Next, we need more yellow, less black. Sunglasses? You want more yellow sunglasses? Brian Park. Next week, we need more yellow, less black. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Should I wear a yellow shirt, yellow sunglasses? I don't know. Ebony McKickass says, it's okay, Night Shift. I'm balancing out with my sparkles. Oh, well, thanks. Ebony's saving the day. It's all about balance. That's true. Iron Maiden, 2 minutes to midnight. The song, 2 minutes to midnight. And now we're less than 90 seconds. Well, 90 seconds or less. I think it's 89 seconds to midnight now. Okay, guys, I've got to wrap it there. I'm going to be back with another video this week. We'll be back Friday. Don't forget to join us then. We're going to have Reed Summers here. We're going to talk about the dark side of non-human intelligence and the possible ways that it could go south, first contact, and how we need to conduct ourselves, the types of questions we should be asking, the types of things we should be thinking about. I highly encourage you not to miss this one. Reed is an excellent guest. He's a very thoughtful speaker. He's thought long and deeply about this issue, and he has much to say on the topic. He's one of the only people in the UFO space right now discussing it. It's vitally important for our community to at least incorporate this into the conversation. We need to be having these discussions. We need to be talking about who we're dealing with, what do they want from us, how are we going to respond, and what comes next. Be there or be square Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And let me know what you think in the comments, and send me an email. You can go to teamnightshift.com. You can check out the merch there. You can pick up a shirt. You can go to Cole Watkins stores there. You can pick up one of his shirts. Check them out. They're awesome. What else? Go to From the Infinite Jewelry, friend of the show. Check out From the Infinite Jewelry. They make awesome silver pendants and necklaces and jewelry pieces that are based on famous historical UFO sightings. Phoenix Lights is one that I really like. It's awesome, all out of silver. Casey Veal is the silversmith behind that. And don't forget to go to Area 52. Check out our friend Chris Ramsey's channel. Subscribe. Seco Activo, Pavel's channel. Check it out. Subscribe. A rising tide lifts all ships. We're all in this together, guys. I cannot thank you enough for hanging out and spending the time that it takes to listen to me go on every week about this stuff. It's awesome to be here with you. And yeah, man, just let's keep doing what we're doing and hold on. It's going to be crazy. I will catch you on the next one. Until then, keep looking up, everybody.
Welcome back to the Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, disclosure, and everything else your friends, family, and coworkers are so sick and tired of hearing you go on and on about.